A lot of you have been asking us about what settings we use on our G85 to make YouTube videos, so we thought today we would go into how we've set up our camera and share that with you. So stay tuned.
So we're going to do a factory reset so that we can work with the camera just like it comes out of the box. So we'll go ahead and say yes. And we'll just say yes to that. And we'll just say yes to that. Okay, this is how the camera comes right out of the box. So we're going to show you how we set up our settings on the G85 for YouTube, kind of static YouTube shots in like a studio environment. So first thing you're going to want to do is on the top here, you're going to want to be on the manual video mode right there. So that's the first step. So next what you're going to do is press this P button and you're going to want to hit the M. That's super important. That allows us to set everything up manually. So let's just jump right in. So on this first tab with the little red camera icon, we're going to go right into photo style. We're going to leave it on standard, but what we're going to do is we're going to come down here and go -2, -2, and we're going to take the noise reduction all the way down. Now, just so you know what these are contrast, sharpness, and noise reduction. You could possibly take these down even further, but we find that this allows for us to work with video right out of the camera with really no adjustments in post. So we're just going to go ahead and get back out of that. The next thing we're going to do is look at record quality. We're going to go down here and we're going to go to this top one, 4K, 100 megabit per second, 30p. That's pretty much the highest quality that this camera can do. You could do 24p for sure. Kind of just depends on the look you're going for. We can do another video on the differences between frame rates, but right now we actually shoot everything in 24, but we're experimenting with doing 30 as well. So we'll just do 24 for the moment. The next thing we're gonna do is go down to metering mode. So we're gonna change that to spot. And that just means that wherever we put the very, very center, that's what we're gonna meter. Next thing we're gonna do is go down to luminance. Now this is actually kind of important. So Panasonic on the G85 has, normally they have 3 settings, 16 to 235, 16 to 255, and 0 to 255. Well, it turns out that this is an oddball. 16 to 255 is oddball. We don't want that. Premiere and Final Cut deal with either 0 to 255 or 16 to 235, which this camera doesn't have, oddly enough, just fine, but it does not really deal with this one too well. So we want 0 to 255. So the next one, we're gonna go into stabilizer just to make sure it's off, and it is not off. So we wanna go ahead and turn this off for tripod shots. If you're handheld, we wanna turn that on. The E-stabilization, we recommend never doing that. You can do the same thing in post and it's probably a little better. So we want them both off. Mic level display, I like having that on in case I'm using the internal mic or maybe a Rode little shotgun boom type mic on the top. We're not gonna adjust the mic level, but if you do use an external mic, you will need to most likely adjust that possibly down because it does seem to have a pretty sensitive preamp. I think with the Rode Mic Go, when the mic is pretty close, I have to go almost all the way down to -12. Right now, we'll just leave that at 0. Definitely want to turn the limiter off. It's better to set your levels properly rather than rely on probably a cheap digital limiter. So we'll just leave that off. Wind noise canceller, go ahead and just turn that off. And we are now done with the motion picture tab. Now, just so we don't lose anything, let's go to the next tab and let's save that. And we're gonna save this a few times as we go through. Let's save that to C1, which is a dial number up on the top. So let's just go ahead and save that and we'll say yes to overwrite. And now everything we just did will get saved. And now all the changes we continue to make, if we save them, they'll get added to or overwritten essentially. And that's what we're gonna do. We're gonna it's like saving a document on your computer. As you go through it, you want to constantly save so you don't lose anything in case the camera turns off or what have you. Okay, we're going to go to the custom memory settings. we're gonna go down to the eye sensor auto AF. We'll go ahead and turn that off. I have no need for it. I don't want it doing extra things for me, so we'll just go ahead and turn that off. Next thing we're gonna do is the AF plus MF. This means that you can use autofocus and manual focus together. So we'll go ahead and turn that on. Manual focus assist, I like to have it on the one that's actually selected. So that icon is what you should see. That allows you to use the ring on your lens as opposed to buttons on your camera for the manual focus, if you decide to use it. And then we're gonna go ahead and, by the way, you can go into peaking. I like peaking on. So there's two things you can set in peaking. You can turn it on, but you can also set up the detection level and the display color. I like green, and I like to do detect high. That's kind of a preference thing, but play around with it. It's really just, it's preference. I like the center marker on. That tells you if your camera's level, and that's often really important in video because you can't really crop after the fact, unlike a photo. So I like to make sure that that thing is dead on, and that's super helpful. And you can assign a button to turn it off and on if it gets in the way of the shot. But it is good to have when setting up your shot initially. I do like the highlight on as well. And that will essentially flash when it thinks something's overexposed. Doesn't necessarily mean it is, but I like it. Some people really do not like it, so that's, again, a preference. The zebra pattern. I like zebra. I'm gonna turn zebra 1 on, and then I'm gonna go into the set, and I'm gonna say zebra 1 at 70%. Constant preview, I like to turn that on. Okay, so in function button set, I'm not gonna go through everything, but for setting and record mode, what that does is it says, what are the 5 function buttons? What do they do? The hard buttons, as well as what do the soft buttons that are on the front of the screen do? You can do whatever you want. Some of the things that I like to set up, I won't go through them right now, but I like to have Wi-Fi up on the top so that when I'm on the other side of the camera, I can quickly turn Wi-Fi on and connect to my camera. I do like to be able to turn on and off the level gauge, like on function 7, but I usually assign it to one of the hard buttons. And then the stabilizer is nice to be able to turn that off and on. If I'm doing handheld, I want it on, and if I'm doing static, I want it off. So those are the 3 that I like, but this is all totally up to you what things you use the most. So we won't do anything in there for the moment. Lens position resume. I think this is actually good. If you have a native Panasonic lens, that's it for the custom tab. Okay, so now we're gonna go ahead and go to the setup. There's really not a lot to do here. Wi-Fi, that's something you can set up if you're connecting with the mobile app. We're not gonna get into that, but live view mode, I like to do it at 30. I don't need the LCD here to show me 60 frames per second, even if I'm shooting in 60, which I can't in 4K anyway. So I just go with 30, that's fine. I do like to change the monitor luminance. I go to the second one, it's just a little dimmer. And then for economy, this is what I like to do. Sleep mode is off, which it already is. Sleep mode Wi-Fi, I turn that off. I don't want that disconnecting. Power save LVF shooting, I make sure that that's off as well. And that's pretty much it. Nothing else in this tab. And in the playback, I don't really worry because I never play back anything on my camera anyway. So that's pretty much, those are the settings. In fact, those are the settings you'll see in almost all of our videos that we use. So then we're gonna set this to manual focus. We do all the focusing with the lens. Now we're gonna go ahead and set our aperture, our shutter speed, and our ISO. Now the aperture, I kind of leave till last. So since I am shooting at 24 frames a second, I want to set the shutter speed at 1/50th. If I was shooting at 30, I would go 1/60th. And if I was shooting at 60, which you can't do in 4K, but if you were, you would go 1/20th. That's a 1/25th. So we'll go ahead and put this to 1/50th. ISO as low as possible. And then the aperture is really kind of depends on how much light you want to let in and how much shallow depth of field. The higher the number, the more things that'll be in focus, but the less light you'll get. And you may then need to up the ISO to compensate. Now, we try to shoot at 800 or below, 1600 at the max. It starts to get noisy over that. So ideally we're at like between 200 and 800, which means that in this case, I would have to bring my aperture much lower. So typically what I like to do is set it to 5.6 because that's the smallest aperture that the kit lens can do throughout the whole range. So generally I'll do something for my custom settings like this. Go ahead and save that. And then when I'm actually shooting, I may have to adjust the ISO or the aperture just depending on my needs. But generally speaking, this is how I have the custom settings set for these three. And then I like to make sure that the manual focus is on. If I did need to autofocus, I can just press this button and it will try to autofocus. And then when I let go, it'll stop. So that's how I set up those. Before we get out of here, let's go back into this tab, custom tab, and let's save everything we just did to C1. Say overwrite. One other thing I will mention is if you get something like a little white balance card, this is actually almost too small. This is really key to do before you shoot anything. Let me just show you how the process works. So if I'm gonna bump up the ISO just so you can kind of see the table in front of me. I would never shoot at 6400, it's pretty noisy, but to get the white balance right, get everything set up, your lighting, etc., hit the white balance, then go over to, let's say, number 1. This is your custom white balance. Hit up. Now, again, this card is, well, this card's actually not bad. Hit it there, hit enter or set, and now what it's done is it's adjusted the white balance. And do that before you shoot anything, because if anything changes, any lighting changes, or the color of the walls, or the color of your clothing even, this will help bring that into balance, and it'll avoid looking too blue or too red or green or having off color. So white balance card is important. I have a much bigger one. I think we're gonna actually look at a gray card, which I heard is even better. So we probably do a video of that in the future, but that's the other little thing that we do. Hopefully that helps you out.
So now you can see how we set up our G85 for videos just like this. If you have any suggestions or comments, leave them down below. Subscribe, like, comment, all that good stuff. And you know, if you click the Amazon affiliate links, it does put a few pennies in our pocket to help us keep doing the videos that we love to do. So I'm Chris.
I'm Ricky.
We're 2-Bit Da Vinci. Until next time.